Hi, my name is Leslie Urdaneta, and I am the Director of Family Support and Communication at the National MPS Society. I am honored to be the chair of this year's annual fund campaign and have a chance to share a little bit about how I got to the Society and stories of some of those whose lives have really intersected mine, bringing me to all of you today. As a high school senior, I fell into a network of Caring Bridge pages after a child I knew well was diagnosed with cancer. Family started a site for her. Through there, I read the stories of other children. Many of them had cancer. I saw sickle cell anemia, injuries, surgeries, many more. And then I started reading about Jordan. Jordan was diagnosed with MPS 2 or Hunter syndrome. I didn't know Jordan and I didn't know his family. MPS was new to me. Never heard of this diagnosis, but his mother, Carrie, linked to pages on his site to learn more. Unknowingly, Carrie sent me to two websites. The first was a forum for families who had children with MPS and ML, and the second was to the National MPS Society. I spent a lot of time reading and learning about MPS and ML, honestly, because the diseases were heartbreaking and I wished I could do something. It was a time before there were many treatments for any of the diseases, just on the cusp of enzyme replacement therapies and watching the first few clinical trials. I saw many things fail and glimpses of the first successes for things that would really start to save lives. A few months later, I wound up with one project that was left before graduation. It was my high school biology class, and our professor walked in and said, pick a genetic disorder and write a paper on it. This is it, finish it, you're done for the semester. You're done with high school. The professor gave us a list of options and said to choose something from the list. I asked him for an exception to his list because I wanted to research MPS more formally. He challenged me. He said it was my senior year. It was my last assignment. I should pick something easy that had a lot of information. He said with the list that he gave us, he already knew about all of those diseases. He would know the sources we were going to use without him having to go back and verify them. It would be much easier if I just picked something from the list. I was persistent that I wanted to learn about MPS, and then he reluctantly agreed to let me. The National MPS Society was the main real reputable source for any of my information. The clinicians and the researchers were ones that served on the scientific advisory board. They were the ones writing the papers that I found. Everybody had a connection back to the society, and I knew this was where I needed to land. With the MPS Forum, families began to share their stories with me. They told me about their children. There were a few adults who told me about themselves. I really started to wrap my mind around these diseases and the human and personal connections there. I began to understand more and more and began to make direct connections. I continued to follow personal stories, and I went back to Jordan, who led me to all of these other people. Jordan lost his battle with Hunter syndrome the same year I stood in front of the classroom to share my research paper. The first time I stumbled across speaking the word mucopolysaccharidosis out loud to a group of people. It was a few years later that I'd met his mother, Carrie, in person, who is now one of my close friends. I attended my first family conference in Scottsdale, Arizona as a college freshman. The society welcomed me as a volunteer, where I sat up front and ran slides for those clinicians and researchers who dedicated themselves to saving the lives of children and adults with these diseases. It was in those first few years that those I met started to shape the course of my journey, changed my career path entirely, and 17 years later would land me in front of you today to talk about an organization that accepted and taught a volunteer and brought me into a lifelong journey and a commitment to walk with you throughout every step of the course. I encourage you to consider a contribution to the annual fund this year as it helps to fuel our mission and our work every day to give back to families and to work tirelessly to find treatments and cures for MPS and ML. Thank you.